introduction to my antique books, plus a few knickknacks here on this one. Nice. Much nicer Mark Twain's first editions. This is just part of my books. I'm missing quite a few that are packed away. Okay, not sure how good this is going to work, but we'll see how it goes. This is a bunch of magazines put together into a book. The date is 1815. Philadelphia. Next book, 1001 Stories by the Sultan of the Indies. And this is really interesting. It says, from the execution of a bloody vow he had made to marry a lady every day and have her put to death the next morning, to avenge himself for the disloyalty of his first sultaness. Some pretty neat stories. This one's 1829. Memoirs of Miss Susan Huntington. Oops. And this one is 1826. Boston. Now this is a neat one because I read these books and the writing back then is so totally different. Some of the words, there's no way you can understand them. So I bought myself a real old dictionary. This is actually from Crocker and Brewster's 1838 Classical Dictionary. It's a great book. In 1839, the American School Library. It's a book of knowledge. The Memoirs of Lafayette. 1832, London. It's 2 volumes, I only have one of them. Nice leather-bound books. This one is 1830. Natural Philosophy. This one's really interesting. The History of the United States of America. By Charles Goodrich. This is 1836, Boston. It's adapted to the capacity of use. Now this is a real good book. Choice Anecdotes by Benjamin Franklin. It's 1835. Now some of these are falling apart. Now some of these are in pretty rough shape, but I read a lot of these. That's why I bought them, was so I could read them and compare them to what I was being taught in school and what was really going on. Life and Voyages of Christopher Columbus by Washington Irving, 1835. It's first edition. Wait a minute. Nope, it says a new revised. So it might be the second edition. Geographical view of the world, embracing manners, custom, and pursuits of every nation, by Reverend J. Goldsmith. This is New York, 1845. This is the life of Zachary Taylor, who I'm directly related to. And it always made me curious if this signature isn't a real signature. It's quite a bit different looking than the rest of the book. And like I said, I had family that was directly, well, I was directly related, but back in these times, he was alive. And they may have had him sign it at a family party or something. 1847. So this is before the Civil War. Popular Encyclopedia of History, Ancient and Modern. This one's really interesting. This is 1844. The neat thing about some of these books, the way they portray the history is pretty cool. Here's another Zachary Taylor book. This one's a little tiny book. The Life of General Taylor, 1851. Still before the Civil War. New York. New Testament, 1853, New York. Now here's one of my more favorite reads. The Life of Captain John Smith, founder of Virginia, 1854. And this one's pretty neat. Boston. Sunny Memories of Foreign Lands by Harriet Beecher Stowe, the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. This is 1854. Some of these books have become very valuable. I bought them so many years ago, probably back in the 80s. Commissioner of Patents. Now this one's so extremely interesting. I tried to pick up more of these, but they're really expensive. This one is for the year of 1853. And what it is the actual patents. Let me get to some of the better So it gives the patents that were passed, the patents that weren't passed, patents that were being or in progress at the time of the book. So it's pretty neat. There's some really weird stuff. Oh, this one's really interesting. This one's a really neat read. The Secret Service, the Field, the Dungeons, and the Escape. Albert D. Richardson. And this is the Tribune Correspondent, 1866, out of Connecticut. Okay, I'm down a touch. Oh, this is a really neat book. This is 5 Weeks in a Balloon. Journeys and Discoveries in Africa by 3 Englishmen. It's by Jules Verne. I believe this is the 1860s. And another one I really enjoyed reading, Gulliver's Travels. Gulliver's Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World by Jonathan Swift, Dean of St. Patrick's. And this is 1864. Now this is a real cool book. This was kind of expensive. This is The Life of Abraham Lincoln by J.G. Holland. He was part of the Massachusetts Historical Society, 1866, out of Massachusetts. This is the Acts of the General Assembly of the State of Virginia, past 1865 to 66. Some really interesting stuff in this one. Now this one's really cool. It's General Sherman. Sherman and his campaigns. And look at the date. 1865. At the end of the war. This one's New York. The Story of the Great Rebellion. Tried and True, or Love and Loyalty, A Story of the Great Rebellion by Miss Bella Z. Spencer. It's Massachusetts. The Early Life and Later Experience and Labors, Elder Joseph Bates. Edited by Elder James White. This is 1877, Battle Creek, Michigan. The Steam Press. The Boys of 76. Now this one was really neat. You know, I read so much of the Civil War and stuff. It's neat to read something even older. This is 1876. The Battles of the Revolution, New York. This is one of my favorite books to refer to. The First Century of the United States. It's a really nice looking book. And this one is 1875 out of Philadelphia. Okay. Another good read. The Works of Benjamin Franklin by Jared Sparks, 1882, out of Chicago. And this one I did a lot of my family's history out of. I'm really into the genealogy. So it's 1606 to 1888, Virginia and Virginians. It's a really neat book, 1888, by Dr. R.A. Brock. He was part of the Historical Society. Can you imagine being part of the Historical Society that far back? They had to be able to see some pretty neat stuff. Oh, now here we go. This is great. Swiss Family Robinson. Now you guys don't realize how savage of a story this is. Those guys ate and killed everything on that island. Skinned them and ate them. It's so funny reading some of the original ones. This is 1882. I've actually got a couple older. Oh, here's another really interesting book. State prisons, hospitals, soldiers' homes, and orphan schools, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. History, finances, and the laws by which they are governed. Amos Millen, Auditor General of Pennsylvania, 1897. This one's pretty interesting and has maps and all kinds of stuff. It was pretty horrid back then. They were allowed to do whatever they wanted to you if you were sick in their mind. So, I have a couple others I'll show you. Okay, now this is actually a magazine. This is called The Great Divide. It was published in Denver, Colorado. Mostly history of the area, and some of it's pretty neat. I've got a little more than a half a dozen of them. All of them have different stories that were sent in by people that had family with history in the area. Some of the battles and such of the area, the pioneers. It's a group of Moqui girls, M-O-Q-U-I. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know Princess Leia's hair came from the Indians. It's pretty funny. Let me see if I get closer for you. Look at their hair. And here we thought that it was Princess Leia that came up with that. Nope. So there's a bunch of these books. Some really neat stories. And there's land for sale and all kinds of stuff. Indian pottery and blankets and stuff. There's all kinds of ads in the back. They're all 1893, I believe. Just neat stuff. Yeah, fall 1893. Some pretty neat stories. And I was so happy to find this. My Civil War letters, but then it turned out not to be. This is from the 1870s to 1890s. I don't know what happened to all my Civil War letters. I have a box about this full with all nothing but correspondence back and forth from soldiers to their families and vice versa. This one's, normally they date their stuff. And I have some really great ones, 1887. One of my Civil War letters actually is a woman telling her brother to not vote for Lincoln, that Jefferson Davis is such a handsome man with such great manners. Pretty interesting stuff. I also have another one that speaks about a woman's brother who's a secret agent undercover as a spy. Well, he's a spy, he's undercover, and he's portraying the soldiers of the South. And she put her name and stuff down, but I think they used code names back then. Everybody seemed to have odd stamps that marked their letters so people knew who it was from without actually having names on them. And I'll show that stuff to you as soon as I find it. So these are just a whole bunch of letters. Most of it's actually from this Kingsley family, family of doctors out of New York and that area. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope it wasn't too long. I'm going to be doing a lot more of my antiques. I've got antique stuff of all sorts. I collect everything. I'm a major hoarder of all things. And the books I just showed you, I probably have this many more of this older books, but they're just packed away really well. Thanks for watching the video.